1 week in the books in Central Style. Todd Engle and Jim Ruppert here.
Yep.
Spotlight player. Who's a guy that really showed his colors last week?
You'd have to look at no further than, I guess, south than Jersey. Is that south of here? I think
That's
it is.
definitely south of here.
Nick Lonergan, Jacksonville quarterback, pretty much picked up right where he left off last year.
Finished strong and kept going.
417 yards last week, 4 touchdowns, I believe. And if you like to see footballs being flung about, then go to Rochester where they'll be this week, because that's what you're going to see.
And that'll be
a lot of passing.
Our spotlight game. Will Lunt was pretty efficient. He had 300 and plus yards in
317 touchdown and 2 interceptions, I believe,
in about 15 attempts last week. So if you're planning on going to Rochester, bring a knapsack, and it might take a while.
Yeah,
but it'll be a lot of fun.
Bring a lunch and a calculator if you want to try to keep track of everything. But yeah, I mean, this is I think this is one of those games when you look at Rochester's schedule, everybody sort of points to maybe SHG and to Springfield and to Glenwood and how they stack up. But in terms of just, first of all, I think it's going to be a great challenge for both teams. But in terms of just fun to watch games, I mean, this might be right at the top of the list.
Absolutely. Jacksonville has Reggie Bratton is a state caliber sprinter.
Mm-hmm.
They got a nice transfer from Southeast, Nate Smith. They got we know about Dalton Keenan, Cameron Rule. Those are guys that caught a lot of passes last year. So and Rochester. What did we get out of last week with Rochester?
I'm not sure what you can. Obviously, Lincoln is a team that has struggled recently, and they're still struggling to find their way. I think what you got out of last week was that, I think Rochester proved that I think Lincoln was a team that should have beaten, and they took care of business. Now they're a little bit more. The score's kind of misleading in that Lincoln
moved the ball.
Lincoln moved the ball, and they had plenty of opportunities to score, just had trouble pushing one in the end zone, and I think that ultimately is why this game against Jacksonville is going to be a very high-scoring, point-driven affair, because Jacksonville can move the ball and they can also finish drives off.
What else did we get out of last week, Todd? What did we find out about the Central State 8 last week?
I think we found out that SHG has a quarter. I'm not sure if it's a quarterback controversy, but they're struggling at that position.
Feeling their way through.
Yeah. I think that Chatham struggled a lot, but a lot of these mistakes I'm willing to write up to.
Not a quarterback.
Game.
Miles McAdams.
Yeah.
Miles McAdams is going to be real good.
He made some mistakes, but he was. Everybody else did too. It seemed like, so I think they'll be fine. And as far as Springfield goes, I don't know what.
No questions about who their quarterback is.
Yeah. I mean, they can certainly move the ball, and they're going to get a much tougher test against Glenwood this week.
What about Southeast? Is Southeast still feeling its way through also?
I think so. I think whether it's Aaron Disrow or Johnny Surtott, they've got some ways to move the ball. It's just figuring out how best to do it with both of those guys, and if it's better to platoon them or if it's better to rotate them out or put them in based on situations. I think last week he gave both guys an equal shot, and both guys struggled throwing the ball, and both struggled taking snaps, and both struggled running the ball at times. But ultimately, I think with some added depth and Southeast will figure things out, and I think they're a playoff run this year, probably not, but I think you're going to see them get stronger as the season goes on.
Taylorville and Lanphier played an interesting game at Memorial Stadium, and what did we learn about them in week one?
Taylorville, I think that they love their experience, but it remains to be seen whether they can sort of translate that experience into some wins. And like I said in the blog post last week, I don't know if it means that Taylorville's not quite as good as I thought and Lanphier's better than I thought, or what. Do know that Everett Clemens at Lanphier is
big week for individual achievement had with Everett Clemens being in that class.
Absolutely, he played AAU basketball over the summer, and as such didn't do a lot of summer football other than showing up ready to go for the first day of practice. But that kid's physical skills are undeniable. He's a guy you have to account for when Lanphier has the ball, because if you lose him, you'll end up chasing him, and good luck catching him if that's the case.
Full slate of Central State 8 games. Lincoln has the the non-conference game this week, Lincoln and Canton. But besides that, we've got Springfield High and Glenwood. Very, very good game at Memorial Stadium. We talked about Jacksonville and Rochester. SHG and Lanphier is a Saturday night game. Southeast and Taylorville. Southeast and Taylorville have always had great games.
And they even played a close game last year, too.
Always interesting game.
Either way, you might want to show up for that one, too.
I think we have the Central State 8 is going to be a conference where there's a game a week every week.
And, ultimately that's all you can ask for. The standings may not show that out, but there's going to be something compelling every week. And selfishly, yeah, I want that. So.
Speaking of compelling, we'll be back next week to compel everybody.
That's what we do best.